Yo, okay, so the purpose of this video is to buy some time because I'm not ready to formally present this information, but I need to go ahead and get it out there. Um, so here we are, and I'm doing this to show that it's possible to produce meaningful data when talking about human development. Are we going along an exponential curve? Is it, as I've argued, uh, a logistic curve? Or could it be that we are following along an asymptotic curve? If we were on an exponential curve, then the discrete linear difference function, which is this procedure that turns sequences of data points arranged from oldest to youngest into a graph, and then the actual function or output is to measure the height of the first data point, but that's neither here nor there really in terms of what we want to look at, which is just the general shape of the graph. And if we were, like, this is the main bulk of the data graphed out, and here's the rest of it. And these time scales go from 50 million years per block through about 40,000 years per block, down to 275 years per block, and then the most recent and smallest scale that we have to use here, or that we did use, is 11.6 years per block. And if developments were following along an exponential curve, more or less, then we would expect a general downtrend. Things have been going up ever since around 1921. Hold on. 19, yeah, so 70 is bigger than 19, and then 19 is smaller than 21, so we go up from crustaceans to cephalopods motion. And, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is an attempt. Again, like, this is just to show you that it's possible to do something like this. And what it shows, what combining motility and transportation together into a single data set shows over the long haul, is that things are kind of going in an inverted mountain shape, but then, the other three scales would only take up like this much space at the very tip. So we're basically looking at the entire graph. And, over the next few millions and billions of years or whatever, which way is it going to go? Is it going to go up? Is it going to have like an upward trend where things get farther and farther apart? Or will they be roughly sideways? The funny thing is, like, they can continue to just roughly go sideways and get closer together as long as the increase is chaotic. Like the DLDF function, like, in order to get like a smooth downgrade, you need a smooth geometric progression, and we don't really have that in nature, like in fact. And so, yeah, just because things aren't going all down doesn't necessarily mean that things aren't speeding up. Like things are, the data points in this category of development, motility and transportation, things are getting closer together. Things are speeding up. But that being said, as they say, that being said, sounds so stupid. I said it, so I must be stupid. But yeah, like at a certain point, as in now, today, in the present moment, we have all this stuff figured out. But what's left? Only things in the imagination. Only things that the secret government may or may not even have, you know? Basically UFO technology. And beyond that, like you get to a certain point where like look here, like I say I'm looking right here, bilocation, trilocation, and n-dimensional location. It seems to me that the theoretical ability for us to bilocate, first of all, is like on the road to conquering all of transportation, all of the modes of transportation, because it's going somewhere without leaving. You know, you're still where you are and you're where you wanted to go. And if you could do that universally, you could on call, on demand, by your own volition, become omnipresent, then I personally cannot imagine any mode of transportation trumping that. You can go everywhere at once, so any possible because what is travel about? It's about going from point A to point B. If you can go everywhere at once, it doesn't matter what the um, desired destination is, you will get there, you will get to where you wanted to go. And so, because it all comes down to, at least for me, like whether nature is infinitely complex or not. Because if nature isn't infinitely complex, then how can she support continued complexification, you know, of transportation in this case? Like, could you imagine just developments on into infinity in the category of transportation if nature were only finitely complex? You know, it just doesn't seem to make sense that nature could be only finitely complex, but yet allow for infinite complexity. Okay, so like obviously can't prove it, but I really think there's a connection here between whether nature is infinitely complex or not, and whether developments just go on into infinity. And if they don't, then we could reach the end. If they do go on forever, you could never reach the end. Is that what you want? Fine. But in my world, in my reality, my universe, my multi-dimensional reality here, we need to be able to have closure, completion. And Also, like, I just want to say, I had thought that you would need infinitely many scales of reality in order to support infinite complexity in nature, but it's also conceivable that you could just have one scale of reality with, down to quarks or superstrings, whatever, and if that's the quantum scale and nothing is meaningful below that, then this reality, then the universe could still be infinitely complex. You would just need an infinite number of laws to govern a single level of reality. So you can see how absurd that begins to sound, or does sound. It's overkill. And yeah, so it's not likely that nature is infinitely complex and space-time is quantized. Then if you still wanted nature to be infinitely complex, it seems like you would have to appeal to uh, quantum continuity and this, like, infinitely many levels below and infinitely many levels above. And then those levels need to have like some independent laws that are non-inducible, that you can't use like mathematical induction and say, okay, well, here's the pattern. And so, the universe, or like the level that's like 5 levels above us, is going to have blah blah blah, like according to the induction. Like, no, you need some yes, that's exactly it. You need some irrationality and and otherwise unpredictability in the laws at each level in order to get this infinite complexity. Okay, so, but if nature is not infinitely complex, then I contend that um, yeah, there's only a finite number of developments to be made. We can see it here in the example of motility and transportation. Yes, I had to use my imagination to push it into the future, but we went from all the way from the first data point that we could think of, which was the bacterial flagellum 1 billion years ago, and everything that's happened since then in terms of transportation and motility. And, there's not much left. Not much left, but it's like really hard stuff to figure out. So, you know, um, and again, if we were on an asymptotic curve, then history would just stop. Like if it was 10 years out in the future here, like this is 11 years. Yeah, so if it was the singularity, if the asymptotic singularity was here, you know, you would have a Zeno's paradox from here to that moment, and you would have infinitely many things going on and more in each little tick. But again, that requires continuity, quantum. But okay, yeah, so this is just the general overview. This is incomplete work. It was done in Paint. I want to redo it. I need to find motivation. I need to like scrap the script and just scrap the script and start over. But I have some other projects that I'm working on, and I just again wanted to buy some time and put this information out there in case I don't get to do so at a later date. And yep, here she is. We got all these different modes of transportation, motility, bat, flight, and video's over. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.